Lucas Matthysse and Ruslan Provodnikov. I don't think it was the 5-star classic that we were all hoping for, but it was a 4-star fight, and we can't. That's still a fight of the year contender. Terence Crawford, he showed probably his most impressive win to date. Just how special of a fighter that he can be, and that he is most likely the future pound for pound king of the sport. Now, despite all of that, and those are two great fights, we have to start with Andrzej Fonfara's. I don't use this word too often because I think it's used way too frequently and it's not used appropriately, but it works this time. We got to talk about Fonfara's exposing of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Jason, your wife is Polish, so
Yes.
want to start?
Yep.
You want to tell us what it's like in your household?
Oh, it was rejoicing. Yeah. Yep. And especially rejoicing when you didn't necessarily expect him to win makes it even better. She's actually seen Fonfara get beat by Stevenson, and she didn't necessarily have the best feeling going in. Neither did I, but it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. It's just when you saw the physical size differential of even before the opening bell sounded, but when they were on opposite sides of the ring from each other waiting to start, and Fonfara was just so much bigger than Chavez Jr., it's something clicked that, like, wow, that whole being able to bully, that's completely out the window.
Mm.
But you're already starting on plan B, which is rush forward with your head like a bull.
I was worried during the weigh-in. I told a bunch of people to, bet back Fonfara because he had excellent odds. When we saw the weigh-in, though, I suddenly got really nervous because you know how he always looks in terms of weight when he's weighing in. He looks like he's malnourished, like he's going to hydrate a bunch. I didn't expect him to look like that at a light heavyweight fight because I didn't think he'd have much to cut. Well, where he looked the same as before, where he was that, dehydrated, as dry as a bone, I thought, oh no, he's found a way to do it again. He's gonna come in enormous and have a weight advantage again. So I got really nervous until they ring walked, and I suddenly felt okay again.
It was really unbelievable how horrific Chavez looked on the scales. I could not believe that he could make himself look that bad and fight at that weight. So I think it speaks strongly to his training regimen. And I have a point to make about that in the corner when they talk about some of the corner work in that fight. Angela, what did you think when you saw him on the scales? Because I know you sent me a picture of him.
I thought Chavez Jr. escaped from some sort of concentration camp because he looked dreadful. He just looked bone thin. His eyes were sunken in. He just looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept in days either. The real thing though about this fight though, I was wrong. I thought Chavez Jr. with that weight advantage that we've seen him rehydrate past when he's looked bad like that on the scales. We've seen him rehydrate, come in and stop guys over time, and I figured, okay, Fonfara doesn't punch that hard. Chavez Jr., regardless of whatever Fonfara does, is gonna land those body shots. And you know what? He did do that. He landed some pretty vicious body shots. And Chavez Jr. does throw to the body really well. Those are his best punches that he can actually throw when he goes to the body. However, the size advantage didn't matter because Fonfara just got to him either way. Now, so a couple of things. There was a lot of funny stuff with this fight. So first of all, I started counting how many times Chavez Jr. complained to the referee. That total was 12.
In the first round.
No, not in the first round. It was the whole fight. One other thing, Chavez Sr., if looks could kill, would have been escorted from that building in cuffs for murdering his son. There was a funny comment in the fight thread. Some guy said, Chavez Sr. is about to disown his son and go adopt a certain Kazakh warrior for real after that. Username CDRagZZ.
That's a good one.
And just like a quick assessment of Chavez Jr.'s game plan, it looked like he read the cliff notes on Julio Cesar Chavez, El Gran Campeón, and figured, I just flip through the pages. All right, I could do some of this, and threw the book in the trash.
Yeah. He read every other page, threw the book in the trash, and lit it on fire.
And then nodded at everything Joe Goosen told him.
Okay, can I talk about the corner work for a second here?
Yeah, please do. Go on.
Okay, so there were, I think, at any given point, 3 to 4 people in Chavez's corner, which is not out of the ordinary. You have your trainer, you have your cut man, you have your second, so that's not a big deal.
And the
There
CEO
were
of your promotion.
the CEO of your promotional company, which is apparently Chavez Jr. Promotions, but we could get back to that. Uh, if you notice, they introduced the fight being promoted by Chavez Jr. Promotions. So in his corner though, he has two guys. Goosen's in front of him saying nothing, and then there's two people standing on either side of him speaking in Mexican at the same time in each of his ears.
Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish. Whoops. I'm not as racist as Kovalev. I guess that'd be more like a nationalistic thing. But anyways. So it was so clear that Goosen probably gave up on him very early on in that training camp. He wasn't really trying to give him any direction that I could tell, nor was Chavez paying attention to Goosen. So Goosen was almost just like this figurehead that was brought in so he could say he has a trainer, but really it's these other two guys that were, training with him. And these are the same guys that I've seen with him through a couple fights now. They helped train him for the Vera fight, the first one, when he kicked his dad out of camp, and, those guys were around, Left Roach and all that stuff. So, he probably had this super unorganized camp, right, where he's calling the shots. Apparently, I thought it was going to be one of two ways. He could have, because he was fighting at a high weight, he didn't have to focus all his camp on cutting weight, and he could focus on actually training. But that did not happen. He definitely had to, put a lot of effort into cutting weight, which was just unbelievable. But to see that corner there with Goosen just being rendered completely ineffective because Chavez Jr. is Chavez Jr. was just, interesting to watch from my point of view.
The thing I wanted to mention was that post-fight interview was going to go down as an all-time classic. For both guys, Fonfara, for one, he just kind of has a funny way of speaking.
Yes, yeah.
And the other thing, but you got to love him for it. It's almost as good as the way Golovkin talks. But Chavez or Fonfara's team urging him to thank Al Heyman, and he's doing it too late. And then he had a chance to jump in and do it, and then didn't do it.
Nope.
And then Chavez Jr. thinking he was winning the fight, which was, I mean, at that point it was sad, but also in hindsight, it's kind of funny.
I heard someone saying that due to his ability in English, he was actually trying to convey that he was competitive in the fight, not that he was winning. But linguistically,
both were incorrect.
Either way, it would have been incorrect. But I don't think, even if you had limited understanding of English, win, especially if you're a boxer, you know what win means.
His quote was, "I think I won the fight."
Yeah, I don't think there's any ambiguity. I think there's a little bit of mental gymnastics going on. Oh no, really? He was just trying to say that he was competitive. No, I think he knows what he meant.
Yeah.
Even if there's no way that he was, winning that fight or going to win that fight.
Let's not take anything away from Fonfara either. We spent a lot of time talking about Chavez, but Fonfara stuck to his game plan. Fonfara did some great stuff in there. When Fonfara would twist and turn Julio, it was beautiful. Like, he was doing a really great job. He wasn't just doing like basic boxing. He was actually getting in there, using his footwork, using Chavez's momentum against him. Like, he was really doing some great stuff from a technical standpoint that just made him look great. Granted, it was relatively easy for him because of Chavez's game plan. That definitely helped, but let's not take anything away from him either, because he really fought a great fight. He could have easily ended up getting stuck on the ropes and just let Julio, go to the body, but every time his back hit the ropes, he would twist out and get some great shots in. Anything that Junior landed, he landed back twice, 3 times as much. Like, he was on point.
Yeah, Fonfara was excellent yesterday. So let's jump off of this fight, though. And, well, actually, one last thing. Chavez Jr., what's next for him? Fonfara has a Stevenson rematch that he can go after. He can go after Beterbiev. But Chavez Jr., he might have, his brand what he did to his brand by stopping himself on the stool, that's detrimental. I don't know if you can come back from that. He pretty much lost whatever he had left in terms of fan base, I think, in doing that. I mean, they were throwing stuff into the ring, and it wasn't at the decision or Fonfara. It was at him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sad to see as well. It's annoying when fans behave like that because obviously they feel let down, but that's not how you treat someone. In terms of what's next for him, I know I'm about to say something that will probably be divisive, but I think he's going to get Ward.
At what weight, though? So
well, at crazy catch weight, who knows? But Ward has said that he's not looking for a huge fight. Fighting Chavez would give it a big audience, give it some buzz. I think it would be one-way traffic, and we know what the outcome is already. But I think based on what Ward's looking for, I think it fits the bill perfectly. I think it's probably sensible matchmaking and what we'll see happen. I know it's not obviously the best option for anyone, but I think it's what will probably happen.
That fight would probably look like the Ward-Dawson fight. There's no way that Chavez Jr. There's no way that
The dogs were upset by that one.
I know. There's no way that Chavez Jr. remains standing against Ward because Ward would just hit him with way too many clean shots.
Yeah, I agree. But in terms of just from a pure matchmaking point of view, can you see the logic in it?
If you, the logic's there if Mexican fans are going to support Chavez Jr. still. If you're of the opinion that they're not going to and they're not going to turn out for any more of his fights, then it would be tricky. But if you're of the opinion that his name value is still intact after this fight, yeah, absolutely.
Even beyond name value, Ward is going to either fight someone unknown as a tune-up fight or Chavez as a tune-up fight, and they'll both be equally uncompetitive, but one will have more name recognition credibility.
I think the tricky part would only be, sorry about that. I think the only tricky part would be identifying a weight for a fight like that, because I think we've seen the end. I think we've seen the beginning of the end for Chavez
absolutely,
Jr.
Yeah,
we've seen the beginning and the end, and he's not going to be able to recover from that. When fighters quit on their stool like that, sometimes it has the ability to do something, from the mental standpoint.
You're going to see Fonfara's next outing. Him and his crew are going to have the headband on that says Fonfara.
Yeah.
They should. Because Fonfara looked like he was, in a karate movie at the beginning of the movie. He looked like he was ready to compete in some karate tournament. And I think, just to be funny, Bloodsport style, they wear one of the Chavez Jr. headbands entering the ring for his next fight.
Yep, absolutely.
That would be fantastic.
And doesn't light heavyweight need another villain?
Well, why not? It couldn't hurt.
Nope.
Or I guess that's how you get popular in that division. You got to do terrible things. But let's jump on to the Matthysse Provodnikov fight. And just first up, the scoring. What did you guys think?
I had it wider than what it was called as, but I'm not disappointed by it necessarily.
Oh, you thought Provodnikov clearly won that fight?
Clearly, no, of course not. I had Matthysse way further ahead in rounds than the judges did, but that's neither here nor there. The right guy got it, in my opinion.
Jason?
Yeah, I think the right fighter definitely won. I think it would have been kind of a stretch to give Provodnikov anything over a draw. I think a draw you could make a justifiable. You could make a justifiable case for it. It is generous. You could not go beyond that. Going beyond that would be negligent.
Yeah, I had it a draw, but the thing that I saw was that Provodnikov clearly lost 6 rounds, so you can't actually, responsibly give Provodnikov that decision just based on you clearly lost 6 rounds where you didn't do anything. Matthysse lost 4 rounds pretty big, and the rest he was in every round. So I can see anywhere from like a draw to maybe 8-4 for Matthysse, which is what Simon has.
That certainly is, yeah. And I think that's correct as well. If you have it as 6-4 with 2 swing rounds, that's about right.
Yep.
Um,
But yeah, I've mentioned before, people get caught up in score hatred, and sometimes it's valid and needs to be taken to task. But as long as the right guy's got it, who cares if it was a bit narrow, a bit wide? That's all right.
Do you
so
think there's a chance they'll rematch each other, or do you think they're going to let it lie at the decision that they got?
well,
Uh,
if first of all, if you're Matthysse, what do you do? Like, what do you think you should do if you're Matthysse?
Probably not go back to Provodnikov, not because I think Provodnikov would do better or anything like that, but only because I think career trajectory wise, he wants a bigger fight.
Yeah, I think they will end up rematching, but not anytime soon. I think it's one of those ones where Matisse is
Yes.
going to want to go and try his hand at some bigger names, try his luck, and then I think that's one of the things that will be on the back burner. It was a good scrap. You'd probably watch it again, and they'll do it again, I reckon, when the time's right.
I think they will eventually do a rematch just because these kind of fights, they just tend to, these fighters just tend to wind up together all the time.
Yeah.
But Matthysse, I think, wants a title shot. And so I really think we're going to get Crawford versus Matthysse. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And Golden Boy and Top Rank don't mind doing business anymore. So it makes sense. And it's not a good idea for Matthysse.
No,
You
but
think
it'll pay well, and he'll be competitive in it at first.
I
Um,
think if you're Matthysse, you go after Benavidez or the winner of
is-
Ik Yang versus Cuenca if they ever do that to
See
get
that?
one of those vacant
Excellent.
really?
titles.
Yeah.
You
Why
think that
would
would
you
be the
not fight
direction?
Ik Yang for a vacant belt? That's a good fight too.
It looks exactly like the one we just saw,
Yeah.
except I think Matisse tees off a little more because Yang. Um, I mean, Yang's a crude version of um, Yang is a crude version of Provodnikov, so that kind of tells you how that fight would
Provodnikov's a
go.
crude version of Provodnikov.
Yeah, I think Ik Yang adds more to the mix stylistically because Provodnikov's style is quite straightforward and Ik Yang's has a bit more of a varied style. But yeah, I think overall the analogy sticks that he is a crude Provodnikov. But you know what? You'd watch that. That would be an exciting match that'd be easy to get hyped about.
No, it would absolutely be another one of these hyped matchups coming in where you tell everybody tune in.
None
Hmm.
of those fights, I don't think, have the name recognition that Matisse is going to be looking for, though. If I'm honest, I get they could be fun matchups stylistically, but the name value isn't there. I don't think.
The
Yeah,
only
the
the
name
only
value is there with Crawford, but
Well, we didn't
it's
mention
less.
Crawford, right? You're talking about like Yang and Benavidez.
No, but before that, talking about Crawford, and I think that he would the name value would be there, but it would
Oh,
be
with Crawford, absolutely.
less I don't know, less opportune for him.
let's talk about Crawford now. So I have a slogan for Crawford, and I hope it's not too cringy. You guys can tell me. I think like his whole thing, like his campaign, should be "In Bud We Trust," because the guy knows what he's doing. No
I love
matter
it.
what you look or what it looks like, don't worry. Don't do anything. Don't
Huh.
start telling your friends, "Oh, Crawford's gonna lose this one," because it's like the way I see it, it's like watching somebody who you know is really good at debating and watching them how they string somebody along and they seed points at the right moments because they're going to come and hit them with the heavy artillery at the end and there's not going to be anywhere for the person to go. And we saw that last night where Crawford was giving Delorme and almost letting Delorme do what he wanted until very simply he laid down or he set the trap, hit him with the right hand, and it was all done from that point.
Mm.
So to even bolster that point, I think that's a great motto. Um, Even in these rounds, in the early rounds where he's like clearly losing, right? He goes back to his corner, and everybody is cool as a cucumber. They are just like calm. There is nothing wrong. We don't really need to make any adjustments at this point. Just keep doing what we're doing. Like you got no sense that there was any worry at all
Mm.
in their corner. And that's awesome because I think he almost thrives off that that calmness and that like, okay, everybody trusts that I'm going to be able to do this. I know I can do this. Like he feeds off of that rather than like a bunch of nervous energy surrounding him, and he just did a fantastic job last night.
About that, one of the things I noticed is that his team, it seems like their game plan for him is not to win rounds or not to win this round. Like they don't think of it as like a round by round sort of thing. Their game plan is to win the fight, and they have no concern for winning round one. Like it's not important to them to win every single round, but
Absolutely.
to execute the greater plan that they've come in with.
So I don't know if you noticed, but I think it was in his post-fight interview where he had mentioned, part of their game plan was to not hit Delorme with the power till after the third round. Right? That was what he had mentioned, and he said, "Oh, in the fourth round, my trainer said let it go, so I let it go." So and that's where you saw the fight kind of turn on a dime, and maybe he's just really masterful at executing his game plan, and he does a fantastic job with it.
I'm always concerned though when someone has a game plan that involves getting punched in the face flush a few times, and I
You
get
think
what
that was
I get.
it?
Well, no. I think that he was happy to allow that to happen to lull him in, but that's risky stuff. And if you keep doing stuff like that, you're gonna get caught by the wrong person sooner or later.
Sure, I don't necessarily know that it was allowed to get punched in the face, more that just don't give him all of your power at once. Don't let him get used to it and then bring it all in at one time and see how he deals with it. Once
Mhm.
those first three rounds they're feeling each other out, he thinks Crawford's power is at one level and then all of a sudden Crawford steps it up to a totally different level. So
Yeah.
if anybody had anybody had any questions about how Crawford would look at 140, it's not much different than what he looks at 135.
No, totally agree to that. Yeah. Um,
And does he now enter the division with this win, like number one at junior welterweight?
Who do you have to beat him?
Lamont Peterson would, and Lucas Matthysse would be the two guys that you would maybe have an argument to put them over Crawford.
can Peterson even make that weight?
Let's assume not, because I don't even think the lineal champion can make that weight. So it's up
Yeah.
to Matthysse and Crawford, it
Peterson.
seems.
Yeah, I guess. If Peterson could make the weight,
You
I wouldn't favor him.
you
I
don't
don't
like
I don't
Broner going in?
Broner against who?
Crawford.
Um,
Broner's got too low of a work rate, in my opinion, to be competitive against Crawford.
well, Broner is the can man, so we
He
can't rule that out.
well
He's the can man,
we
and anybody can get it,
including him,
including
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 himself.
him,
including himself,
excluding Maidana. He can't get it,
excluding
but
Maidana.
no, I think it's a really actually it's an interesting fight, Crawford and Broner. Um,
Please, Crawford would pick him apart. It would be an utter domination, just like most Crawford fights. It would
I don't
be.
think so, and here's why though. I don't think
That's
it's
fine.
because Crawford's not as good or anything. I just think both guys would kind of there wouldn't be a lot of action in that fight, so it wouldn't look as good afterward as say Crawford beating Matthysse.
What do you mean by look is good? I get what you're saying. It would be probably a
Do you mean
slow-paced fight, but
fan friendly or?
Well, it's not going to be as obvious that Crawford looks great after that fight against Broner than he would if he's fought Matthysse.
oh yeah, no, I can agree with that. He would probably win much less emphatically against Broner, but he would
Yeah,
win.
it would be underwhelming a fight with Broner unless he
It would be like
Marquez
people
him.
or a Klimov, like the Klimov fight where it was slow, but he won every round.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
But I think it'd be
I don't fancy
interesting. I think
Broner's
Crawford,
chances at all.
if what Crawford did in that fight, he showed off a little bit of his personality, which a little bit is an improvement for him. If he can keep doing that though, and like he had a little bit of arrogance there, but it wasn't like the Mayweather arrogance or the Broner arrogance where it makes people hate him. But you had to like what he was doing. He
Yeah.
still played it like he was an underdog, being confident, and that was really great.
He's quite nonchalant as well. In post fight, they asked him if he was going to watch the Matthysse Provodnikov fight. And he was like, I don't have a TV in my dressing room. And they said, which of the two do you want to face? And he's like, either, whatever, it's fine.
He
They
beats them
they have a
both.
star on their hands, and they just need to market him correctly and
Do you
not try
think
to
he
force
needs?
him.
Let me ask you. They have a star from a technical standpoint, but the personality thing. Do you think he needs to kind of manufacture something at this point, or do you
I
think his
No, I think
ability is going to bring
yesterday.
fans?
No, yesterday what he did was perfect. I think
Okay.
yesterday there was enough on display that we can. I would feel confident in selling Crawford. What
Okay.
do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of those people where his actions speak louder than his words, and as long as there's the bare minimum of personality there, he can coast off pure talent to make up for the rest of it in terms of fan appeal.
All right, let's jump off of this subject and let's talk about probably the biggest news piece of the week, and that was that main event sent out some letters saying that they were going to withdraw their purse bid for the Adonis Stevenson versus Sergey Kovalev WBC ordered fight. And they talked about the possibility that if they lost the purse bid, that Kovalev wouldn't be able to go through the fight anyway because they would want it on, a PBC network, and Kovalev is like ironclad to HBO. And then they also threw out that Kovalev has an upcoming defense against Najib Mohammadi for the IBF title that he holds. There's just a lot of confusion here. What do you guys think about this situation?
I'll take I think probably what would be considered the unpopular stance, and just I understand where main events is coming from. Main events recently, with the creation of PBC, lost a ton of ground from a financial standpoint as far as revenue sources go. They lost their big deal outside of HBO, and from what I could tell, main events doesn't have any other source of revenue from network television other than HBO. So for them to risk that uh, marriage, or agreement, or
Mm.
whatever they
That
have
payday
with
that they
HBO
get out
there,
of Kovalev fighting on
HBO,
HBO.
for them to risk that in the long run could be detrimental to their bottom line in the long run. So, and I get that's probably not the most popular opinion, because hey, every fan wants to see the fight. I want to see the fight. I wish they'd go and do it off HBO if that's what they have to do. I don't really care, but I understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, and you gotta feel bad for main events because I think they're losing this one. They don't have deep enough pockets, they don't have enough negotiating clout, and they don't have enough big star earners. And Kovalev, I feel, is the sort of person who's going to be loyal to them, but at some point it's going to be dollars make sense, and is going to have his hand forced a little.
I think one of the counterpoints to this, and tell me what you think about this, Angelo, like a counterpoint to what I was saying, would be, well, then HBO needs to step the fuck up and pay a lot of money for this fight.
I no, that's exactly what I mean. It seems to me that if HBO and main events want to keep Kovalev on their network, and I think actually main events would be willing to do that fight without HBO. Like if I'm main events and I go to HBO and say, if you guys don't got my back here, we'll leave. Heyman needs opponents. He needs people for his networks. He needs a promoting license to put on these shows. That's an option for us. But we also have one of your stars in Sergey Kovalev. So let's get together and win this damn purse bid so that, you know, it's just not a good look also for the networks to keep losing to PBC and Al Heyman. Showtime, I mean, what does their future look like? It doesn't look good as far as, being a network that puts on boxing. So I think HBO they need a victory. They haven't had one in a while. And I think this could be the victory where they take the fight and they, through winning this purse bid, bring Adonis Stevenson over to HBO. And the other thing, put the ball in Stevenson's court where he can dig his own grave. People have been claiming that Stevenson doesn't want the fight, and Stevenson now is at the point where it's like, hey, I want the fight, but these people don't want to be part of this purse bid, so clearly they don't want the fight. Take the upper hand away from Stevenson and take whatever leverage he has to say that, he's the one avoiding the fight, and win the purse bid and put it on HBO. And if he doesn't want to come and Al Heyman doesn't let him go, well, then we know who's avoiding the fight.
Well, it's over at this point, isn't it? Did they withdraw from it?
Well, main events withdrew their offer on the purse bid,
Right.
but I don't think the purse bid has actually happened, so we don't know who's actually won the purse bid. And if or when this fight's going to actually happen.
Okay,
No,
so there's still a chance that HBO could step in and make a big offer.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
actually
Okay.
I've actually taken out a small loan. I'm in the running too.
Okay.
Yeah, the purse bid hasn't
You only need
timed out yet.
$102,000 to win a purse bid, so it's not that
doable.
much.
Honestly,
Yeah.
we could have, the three of us could have got the Endom Lemieux
Yeah, got the purse
purse
bid for
bid
that.
if we wanted to. We could have held it at my house.
Had it in the yard. No, I think the deadline's not up yet. Has Amir Khan extended the deadline? Have we got the purse bid?
Ooh. Has anybody
Uh,
checked Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram? Then we know.
No, not yet. But no, I think the deadline for that purse bid hasn't been and gone yet. HBO, maybe this is just a bit of brinkmanship from them, but we'll see.
I'm
All right.
really hoping they step up to the plate here. I have a feeling they're not going to, but I really hope they do.
All right, we got a lot of fights to talk about this coming week. So first up, the heavyweight champion of the world, Wladimir Klitschko, will be defending. He's back in America, as HBO would like you to know, for the first time in 7 years, defending against Bryant Jennings. How many rounds does this go?
5.
I think that's being generous. I think Bryant Jennings' alias there is Bryant Bye Bye Jennings, and that's basically what's going to happen to his career after this fight.
Wow.
Yeah, he's going to get pummeled. I think he's really going to get pummeled, and I feel like he's been brought up as an opponent for Klitschko at this point, and like most other heavyweights, right? That's more the rule than the exception sometimes with American heavyweights, and what happens to him afterwards, I guess, is my question, because I don't think there's the chance that he wins.
I think that after Jennings loses, he's going to go and be used as a yardstick for people like AJ.
Right, he falls into a gatekeeper status, right?
Yeah, maybe not even gatekeeper, maybe just
what gate is he going to keep?
Yeah, this is it.
There's no American gate, right?
Yeah, I think the rising Anthony Joshua's, Joseph Parker's are going to be testing their mettle against Bryant Jennings to say, look, I did it better than Vlad did.
Yeah, and they'll get really far with that argument there. I could
realistically, I could see it going, anywhere from like 3 to 5 rounds.
I could see this fight ending in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally possible. And there's been conversations and speculations about, Vlad's taking a soft opponent in the US. He's not earning enough in Germany, and he wants to get him. It's so wrong, all the narratives that are going around. This one should look black and white to everyone. And the way it comes across to me is that he wants to pressure the Wilder fight, and in order to do that, he needs to be relevant and talked about on the US scene. So he's picked a US opponent that he's going to go and showcase against, so that people start saying, hey, if this guy's the champ, I thought Wilder was the champ, what's going on here? Let's make that fight happen, and just cause pressure towards that fight.
You don't think it has anything to do with Germany passing strict PED laws?
I don't buy that at all. It's just it's frustrating when talks of that come in and muddy the water of otherwise totally obvious thing. That's like a distraction tactic more than anything. That's because Klitschko's probably the biggest boxing attraction for German boxing. If you want to be super cynical about it with drug laws and things like that, you think that K2 can't get around that in Germany on the real? Like, of course they, if it were a policy thing, they'll get around policy.
We talk about Jennings like he's just this sacrificial goat for Klitschko. But the thing is, Jennings might be good. He actually might be a good fighter. But Wladimir Klitschko has created a gap so wide in that division that a otherwise good fighter like Jennings is going to go and look pedestrian against Klitschko.
Let me argue Simon's point for a second then.
All right, don't take too long.
I won't. It'll be quick. So your point is he wants to become relevant because he wants his brother's belt, basically, right?
I don't think it's about relevant, but yeah, he wants to have American interest in him again.
Okay. Well, I feel like when you ask somebody who doesn't follow boxing too much, like who do you know? It's Mayweather, Pacquiao. There's 2 Klitschkos.
And the Russian guy.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? So I think like he is kind of well known already, even in the U.S. and he's, HBO banished him after like a really ugly fight, but then he's been back on HBO a couple times now.
Mm. Yeah, I think he gets neglected, and he's that obscure Russian fighter. Obviously he's not Russian, but he's that big Russian guy that
big
fights in
Russian
Germany and ducks
two
all the
heads.
Americans, and he fights
Right.
Euro bums, and it's kind of like the most bizarre logic you're hearing. These alleged Euro bums are people that would be absolutely schooling like the Staverns. Even Wilder could get it from a few of them. Kubrat Pulev, don't discount him at all. I
When he
favour
wakes
him
up,
massively.
he
Yeah,
would beat Wilder.
when he wakes up, he will beat Wilder, absolutely. So I think that Klitschko is a dominant champ and is viewed as someone who's taken soft opposition. And people are looking towards this fight and saying, now we're cooking. Now he's really taking a challenge. And it's like, what are you thinking?
Who's thinking that? No, I don't believe anyone's thinking that. I have not heard anyone say that. I'm sorry. I have not heard anybody say that Jennings is going to be remotely competitive in this fight.
I have to link you to a few.
If you do say that, you should get at me on Skype, because we'll have you on and we'll have a little discussion next week.
We will totally have you on. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Saddam Ali, who upset the entire boxing world when he knocked out Abregu last time he was out, and now he's coming back. Francisco Santana's his opponent. Not the best opponent, but I can get why they put him on the card. They want him in a winnable fight. He's gonna sell a lot of tickets because he's from the area. But what do you guys think about Ali and his future as a welterweight?
Yeah, it looks bright. I think he's got lots of growing potential. He's still early in his career, so I don't want to see him throw him to a tested vet just yet. But he is ready to
Like
start.
Robert Guerrero?
Well, I was thinking like
Jason?
Guerrero level. I was thinking like a Guerrero level of opposition is probably the right direction for him.
I think it's too early. I think he'd manage.
For
but I
Guerrero
think
level? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, on genuinely, he's 21 fights deep. He's at that point where his pro game hasn't had enough experience yet. That if Guerrero does some dirtiness and does some more mature boxing tactics in terms of what they can get away with, that he can get blindsided by it a bit. So I want to just let him grow at his own pace. And he's got this huge stock rush because most people had him losing against Abregu, and then obviously just came through it triumphantly. Well, yeah, I think I'm probably the only person who had Ali as competitive in that fight, and for good reason. But that just because he surprised you doesn't mean you're going to suddenly throw him to a top tier opponent at welter. Yes, he's had a big win. Yes, he looked fantastic doing it, but he's still learning his craft. He's still young relatively and needs to, I don't know, just mature at his own rate.
Let me ask you guys something, because normally once you have that upset victory, right, and you get a lot of like momentum behind you really quickly, promoters will often give you a showcase fight as your next fight to kind of keep building that momentum. Is that what we're going to see next week?
It's a really good point. I think yes.
Yeah, and the matchmaking is fantastic too, because if you look on paper at Santana, when was his last loss? A few years back. And of his recent wins, a good handful of them by stoppage.
Yeah, so it's just something that will be winnable, but we'll keep building that momentum behind him, which is great for his career.
Yeah, and you can say this isn't some paper guy that's come in to lay down. He's won his past like 8, 9, 10 fights, and he's won a lot of them by knockout. This guy's, and they won't say against limited opposition. They'll just But they'll just say, this guy's been knocking people out and he's going to come and ally, so it gives the narrative that Ali's against someone a bit better than perhaps they actually are. So, yeah, I think showcase is going to be the right word for it.
Cool.
Next up, Anthony Dirrell versus Badu Jack. Settle down, guys. Settle down. So, what do you guys think of Dirrell? As so far as, he's the WBC super middleweight champion. Guys, settle down.
He's the one that beat Bika a handful of times, right?
No, he beat him once.
Oh, what was it? A majority decision once or something?
It was something like that. So they had a draw first, and then he beat him by split.
Okay.
I think it was split the second time.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to favor Dirrell.
What over Badu Jack?
I know.
Um,
I know. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
Skinny
Nah,
branches, you're on, man.
Not with this weight, man. My weight class, I'll break them branches.
I'm with Jason on this. Like, I don't know what the hype is around Badu Jack. Why is everyone so confident on him?
TMT, baby.
Hmm.
I'm only being sarcastic. Badu Jack was knocked out when he was throwing a lazy jab and didn't make any adjustment after he was dropped the first time. Although,
Yeah.
granted, he was hurt, so you can't criticize him too much. But what I wanted to say about Anthony Dirrell is, yeah, I would favor him against a lot of super middleweights out there like George Groves or something. But Dirrell's reputation as a champion was built on the draw and win over Sakio Bika and pretty much nothing else.
It's what I
So
remember him by. Yeah.
for anybody else that thinks that Dirrell is a top tier super middleweight, I still rank him below Arthur Abraham. And he
Well, yeah, I
likely
don't.
beats Paul Smith, but that's about at the level that he's at.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But I mean, if you look, Derek Edwards knocks out Badu Jack. A few months later, loses to Dirrell
Well,
in
that's
like a completely one-sided shutout.
well, I mean, nothing else needs to be said about this fight. So Danny Jacobs versus Caleb Truex, who is a really cool dude to follow on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the bigger fight I think for this Friday. That's the one that's easier to get excited about.
Ah, well, here's the thing, okay? When Al Heyman signed Caleb Truax, that's when I had the proof. Like that's when I found the I saw the gun smoke for a long time, but that was actual gun where I knew Heyman was planning something because Truax is a perfect opponent for a middleweight. He's got a good record, but he's a little beatable.
Hmm.
And if Jacobs, I don't know about you guys, but when I watch him, I always feel like he's a little vulnerable.
Who, Dan
Jacobs?
Jacobs?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know. They play
I
up the cancer thing too much where I think like there's always this thing in the back of my head that he might lose. But Jacob should get past Truax impressively, I think.
Well, there's danger in the water, though. It's not one that you can be confident on. Both are beatable, and both are talented. So I don't think that this is as one-sided as fights can be. This one, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a pick 'em quite, but there's certainly danger in it.
Um, Danger of what?
Of there being an upset or it not going the way that you might expect.
I'm here to tell you that you should bet your money on Jacobs, not Truax.
No,
And it's nothing against Truax or anything. I think Jacobs is in the perfect match for him to look good and get that Peter Quillen match at Barclays.
yeah, I see the logic in
Yeah.
it. I just
Yeah.
think that you know, don't count Truax out too soon.
All right, fair enough. This is the last one we're moving on to. Juan Carlos Revico versus Kazuto Ioka, who we talked about in our quarterly reviews. So, in summary, guys, what do you guys think about this fight?
Firstly, is it watchable?
Yeah, Ioka's in a lot of good matches. He was in a Fight of the Year contender a few years ago. He's basically a guy who will adapt. So whatever you throw at him, he's going to throw it right back at you. And it's why his fight with Ruin Wrong was close. Revico, I would say that this is going to be a solid match that you could actually watch. It's not going to be a Fight of the Year contender probably, but it also isn't going to be this, uh, it won't look like a Bundridge fight.
Yeah, because I think there's potential. I was expecting possibly a bit of a spoilery fight where it fails to kick off, but you think that there's little danger of that?
Yeah, and I think Ioka's, personally, I think Ioka is going to drop him. I think Ioka is a little underrated puncher, and Revico's pretty small. I think he's undersized for the division. But I think this about sums up that fight. So
Good prospects fighting too. Verdejo.
we are going to jump on to the next section, which will include Verdejo. And we're going to wrap it up now and just take a minute or so, guys, and answer this question. So Felix Verdejo returns this week. He's going to be fighting Marco Antonio Lopez. Now, it's a small step up for Verdejo, but it's the kind of step up where he's now on the path. He's no longer fighting these guys were just like, what are you doing in the ring with him? This is like 30-second fight at max.
Hmm.
Now, are you guys convinced of Verdejo being the truth that he's being promoted as? The future of the sport, all this stuff.
Well, I think it's tricky to identify that just based off of exactly what you've said, which is we're seeing a bunch of 30-second matches. So I think it's kind of tough, but he's shown some phenomenal skills so far.
And that's exactly what we got to look forward to as well. This is going to be another quick blowout, isn't it?
I think if it is, it will be a very good indication.
The records are not supposed to say that, but most likely yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're so confident they booked him in for another one against TBA a few weeks later, haven't they?
Well, do you blame them?
No, not at all. But
No.
I don't see any danger
But
in
it goes
this
to
fight.
show
This
you.
is going to be just electric blowout, done, on to the next one.
So you guys are both pretty high on Verdejo, or you guys just don't know?
No, I think he's going to smash it through, but until you see them... we've talked about this before where prospects go through their paces. He hasn't had that adversity fight yet where someone brings something really troubling. He's just, learning his craft, going through the pro scene at the minute, and he's blowing people out of there. He's doing what a blue chip prospect should, but he hasn't had that adversity fight that you can say this is his real test of his mettle. You've got the AJ fight coming up where he's got a true world scene opponent. That's going to be his adversity fight. Verdejo hasn't had his yet, and this isn't going to be it either.
My one counter to that is when he fought on the Pacquiao Rios undercard against Duana Mukdahan, I think his last name was. Verdejo broke his hand in that fight, I think, because he started doing some weird stuff in that fight. But he got hit with a pretty decent amount of shots and took a little bit of damage in that fight. He still won cleanly, but I think we could say that he's seen some adversity. And in the Oscar Bravo fight, he did see some adversity too. That one went 8 rounds, and he wasn't able to stop Bravo.
Should probably clarify then. By adversity, I don't mean something didn't go his way because he broke his hand or his own self-inflicted adversity. I mean that your opponent has tools to trouble you.
Oh, you mean like he's a good fighter?
Yeah.
All right, on to the next question. Is two guys who know a lot about adversity, Miguel Cotto and Canelo Alvarez. Dan Rafael is tweeting that this is a done deal for the fall.
Can I tell you what my gut reaction to hearing that?
What is going on here? What is going on here? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, here's my gut reaction upon hearing that news that fight is basically signed, sealed, and delivered, is that we're probably going to end up seeing
Canelo Buncher.
Kirkland versus Gil pay-per-view.
No, guys.
You get that omen when they sign the fight ahead of time.
No,
you know what I
it's
mean?
only for Canelo that the omen. Everybody who says that they're going to fight Canelo once they beat somebody, they get knocked out. Remember when Victor Ortiz was going to fight Canelo? Knocked out.
Right.
You know who was the replacement for that fight?
Oh, Jose de Lopez.
No, it wasn't. Before that.
Before
the Paul Williams fight was signed.
Oh, Paul Williams, right.
There's some curse going on with Canelo that if you sign a fight with him, bad things happen to you.
That's a good point, but it just I get from a business standpoint, you got to do what you got to do, but it rubs me the wrong way. And just to take everybody back really quickly, but the week of the Golovkin-Gil fight, Kovalev announced that he would be fighting Hopkins, and he had yet to beat Caparello. And then when Kovalev went down in that first round against Caparello, the look on Kathy Duva's face was priceless.
Yeah, it rubs me the wrong way a bit when champions have a fight booked in before they've got past their next guy. It's like super disrespectful.
Unless
you understand
you're a prospect.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, when you're a prospect, it makes way more sense. But when you're a top-tier fighter, you're well up in your top 5, top 10 in your weight division, it's just disrespectful to your opponent to be signing stuff before.
Fighting, too, another legit top-rated guy,
that's
what
the
it was
thing.
doing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not good form. And even if you want to behind the scenes start sorting it out to get a jump on it, go for it. But when you start making grandiose announcements, I think that I don't know, you kind of deserve to get put on your ass for that, just for being so complacent.
And the thing for me is I don't believe it. I don't actually think that this is signed. This is are we really supposed to believe that they've signed a fight for September when neither of them has fought their dangerous opponent? I understand that this is a fight that can sell either way.
Right. Maybe they'll be on the undercard of
Mayweather Pacquiao too?
No.
Because that's the only way Canelo's taking that September date.
Oh yeah, no, that's not happening.
All right. Another do you believe question. Khan signed to fight Chris Algieri on Spike TV. Now, does that indicate just how far away Khan is from a Mayweather fight that he's fighting on Spike TV? What do you guys think about that?
He's got 3 tiers of networks. He's got to get from Spike to CBS to NBC to maybe Showtime again once. Yeah, he's got at least 4 or 5 fights ahead of him.
It's an alien one because obviously it's a way bigger thing in the US where there's this like network brand loyalty, and it was weird seeing people like, this is a disgrace to have Khan on Spike TV, and it's like just watch it. It's just a TV station. I don't know. It's alien. Like, I think just because it doesn't work that way over here, it's something that I've not encountered too much before. Like, if someone goes and fights on ITV or on Box Nation or on Sky, that's fine. No one bats an eyelid. You don't. Oh, I can't believe this fight's on ITV. Whatever, it's all right. You had Golovkin on Channel 5. Like, it doesn't factor into anything other than just what channel is it on, so that I know which one to watch, and that's it. There's not that sort of like prestige associated with it.
Well, I think one way to think about it from the United States perspective is like how many people even have access to those stations. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it just
right. But Spike TV is a basic cable.
Is it a basic cable channel?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if
who's
it was
got a cable package. You should have Spike TV.
All right. Well, throw that point out.
It's interesting because Spike's launching over here in the UK now. I wonder if it'll carry that fight here.
Or when they show Frampton versus whoever, people will be outraged that he's fighting on that Spike channel and he's so far away from Scott Quigg, who's fighting Sky Sports 1.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think Spike is launching over here as a like Channel 5 offshoot, if I'm right. It's weird. It is weird that that's launching over here. They've mentioned some of their programming, but I don't think that they've mentioned boxing too heavily here for the UK. And in terms of fights like Khan, I can't see why Sky or Box Nation wouldn't snap that up.
Last question, guys. Sergio Martinez probably going to retire, but probably means that there's a possibility that he doesn't. So the question that if Sergio was asking you, if he was asking you, is there anything left for me to do as a professional? Like, what can I do that would increase my prestige so I can feel better about retiring? What would it be? Is there anything?
I don't know. Like, I'd maybe do one of those, big fights in Argentina in a massive arena in front of 80,000 fans, and just like handpick a lightweight to fight.
When it's raining?
Right, when it's raining and you're fighting a top 10 opposition. Yeah, no, so what I'm saying, fight somebody who's just extremely beatable, maybe just go out on a win, I suppose. But outside of that, I think it's probably is about 2 fights too late.
Yeah, his story reached conclusion with Chavez.
Yep.
And he hasn't got enough fights in him to create a new story. There's no new narrative that you can fit into one fight.
Does Martinez look better now that we've seen Chavez get beat by Fonfara, where now you can kind of look back and see that, okay, if Chavez, everything stripped away, when we saw all of Chavez's advantages taken away from him against Fonfara, he looked terrible. Now, if we go back and we put Sergio versus Chavez without all of those advantages, like, doesn't that make Sergio look even more impressive?
Well, right, because, Chavez had all the advantages. You know what I mean? Right, absolutely.
like Sergio might have stopped him much quicker than Fonfara did if Chavez didn't have the weight advantage and all of that.
Yeah, well, I think part of the ability for Chavez to get stopped, because I think the kid had an iron chin. I think it would have been extremely difficult for anybody to stop him at 160 pounds, even if he didn't have a massive size advantage. I think what happened was the power was just way too different from fighting a natural light heavyweight. It just it was just way too big of a differential.
Mm.
I don't know that he could have been stopped at a lower weight.
If Martinez wanted to come back and fight George Groves at super middleweight or maybe a catchweight, would you guys think that was a good fight for Martinez?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think he can do the business to Groves?
Yeah,
Hell
totally.
yes. Yeah.
I think that he can make Groves feel like he's 1 minute away from a knockout, when actually he's just getting outpointed, and then in the 12th he'll be like, "Damn it, I've allowed them to get away."
I think he could probably still stop Groves. That left hand is still something out of this world, and all Martinez needs to do is do some body work. Groves
Some
doesn't
knee
like it
work.
to the body. All right, and that's it. We'll be back next week. Next week is going to be all Mayweather Pacquiao podcast. We're going to talk about nothing else. So, Simon, Jason, thanks for joining me. Listener, thanks for coming and listening, and however you do that.
My mic's indicted. Yeah.